Do you feel like every day at work is an unbearable burden, as if something is destroying you little by little? Do you wake up already tired, dragging your feet to the office, feeling a knot in your stomach before you even start the workday? I know I've been through this. Thousands of people are trapped in toxic jobs, but the worst thing is that many of them don't even realize it until it's too late. Maybe you've been there, an environment where the pressure is stifling, where colleagues seem more like enemies than allies, and where leadership doesn't support you, devalues you, or simply ignores you. The feeling that no one sees your effort, that your work has no value, and that no matter how hard you put in it, it will never be enough. This is exhausting, it is demotivating, and above all, it is a warning that something is wrong. And the problem is not only professional. Toxic jobs don't just affect your performance, but your mental and physical health. Chronic stress can lead to anxiety, depression, and even burnout. You start to lose patience with everything, your productivity plummets, and even your personal relationships suffer. Have you ever felt like after an exhausting day at work, you barely have the energy to talk to your family or friends? That he is always irritable, tired, and on edge? This is not normal. This should not be your reality. But how do you know if you're really stuck in a toxic job? Are you overreacting, or are you ignoring obvious signs that you need to leave before it ends up destroying you? Today, I'm going to show you 5 clear signs that your job may be killing you and that maybe it's time to say enough. And the last sign, it might shock you. Many people spend years in an environment that only wears them out because they are afraid to go out, not to find something better, or because they have been convinced that this is just the way it is. But is it? Do you really need to live in constant fear, being disrespected, overwhelmed and unhappy, or is there another way? Before making any decision, it is essential to understand what is happening and, above all, prepare to leave in the best possible way, without losses and without regrets. Because quitting without a strategy can be as big a mistake as being stuck where you shouldn't be. So if you have already identified with what I have said so far, stay with me until the end. Because in addition to showing you the 5 warning signs, I'll also tell you what to do before resigning so that your exit is planned, safe, and strategic. Don't skip this part because it can make all the difference between going from a toxic job to something worse or to something much better. Now, let's talk about the first big sign that your job is becoming an unbearable burden. Your health is being affected. And I'm not just talking about normal tiredness after a hard day. I'm talking about an exhaustion that doesn't go away. That feeling that even after a whole weekend of rest, you still feel drained. You wake up exhausted, without energy, without motivation, counting the hours until the workday ends. But when it ends, you don't have the strength to do anything else. That time that should be for you to relax, enjoy your family, take care of your personal life. It turns into a recovery period to be able to hold out for another day on Monday. If this is happening to you, beware. Your body may be sending you clear signals that something is wrong. Frequent headaches, insomnia, muscle tension, gastric problems, anxiety crises, hair loss. These are all common symptoms of extreme stress, and if ignored, they can develop into something much more serious. Studies prove that toxic work environments drastically increase stress levels and can lead to burnout syndrome, a serious condition that can destroy your mental and physical health. If you feel like your body is crying out for help, that's one of the most alarming signs that it's time to reconsider staying in that job. The problem is that many times those who are in the situation do not realize how much it is affecting their life. You may be so used to this routine of stress and pressure that you've started to think it's normal to live in this constant state of alertness. But it's not normal. It's not normal to feel a knot in your stomach every time you receive an email from your boss. It's not normal to feel your heart race every time you need to join a meeting. It's not normal to cry in the bathroom at work because you feel like you're on the verge of a breakdown. Work should not be a source of daily suffering. If it's draining your energy to the point of damaging your health, you need to take action before it destroys you completely. And maybe you think, but I can't go out now. I need the money. I have bills to pay. Yes, that's a legitimate concern, and one of the biggest reasons why so many people stay in toxic jobs for years, even though they know they're getting sick. But there's a big difference between planning your exit strategically and simply ignoring what's going on, hoping that somehow the situation will improve on its own. Because the truth is that, in most cases, it does not improve. And if you don't take action, your body can force you to do it in the worst possible way. I've seen people who have ignored the body's signals to the point of a total collapse. They ended up in the hospital with panic attacks, fainting, very high blood pressure, and only then did they realize that work was killing them little by little. And what happened? They were away for weeks, sometimes months, and when they returned, they realized that the company continued to function normally without them. And that's one of the biggest shocks anyone can have, the realization that no matter how much you kill yourself for your job, he'll never kill himself for you. In the end, if you fall, they simply put someone else in your place. So if you've ever noticed that your health is being harmed, what can you do? The first step is to recognize the seriousness of the situation and monitor your symptoms. Start observing how your body reacts to work. Do you feel good during the workday? Or are you always tense with body aches, with a tiredness that does not go away? Is your sleep affected? Do you feel anxious on Sunday night just thinking that you have to go back to work? Keep a diary of these symptoms, because this can help you understand if the problem is really in the professional environment or if there are other factors involved. And the second step is to seek professional help. Talking to a psychologist can help you better understand what you're going through and give you tools to deal with it in the best way. In some cases, adjustments in the work routine can help, such as setting firmer limits, avoiding taking work home, and learning to say no to absurd demands. But in other cases, the only real solution is to get out of that environment. Because no matter how hard you try to shield yourself emotionally, if the environment around you is toxic, there is no resilience that can protect you forever. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next signal, because it is not only your health that can be at stake, but also the way you are treated within the company. If your boss or your co-workers constantly devalue you, make you feel small, invisible, or treat you as if you were disposable, this is also a big wake-up call that you may be stuck in an environment that isn't worth it. And in the next point, we will delve into exactly this problem, because no one deserves to work in a place where they are not respected. If there's one thing that can kill any motivation at work, it's the feeling of being invisible. You give your best, you make an effort, you deliver results, but at the end of the day, no one notices. Or worse, someone takes credit for what you did. Does this happen frequently in your work? Do you feel that no matter how hard you work, you never get the recognition you deserve? That your boss or your colleagues just ignore you, or when they pay attention, it's just to criticize or minimize what you do? If this sounds familiar, it's one of the clearest signs that you may be in a toxic environment, and you need to do something about it before it destroys your self-confidence. Nothing is more frustrating than being devalued. Imagine the scene. You spend days, weeks, dedicating yourself to a project. He stays late, reviews every detail, solves problems that no one else noticed. The delivery happens, and at the time of compliments, his name is not even mentioned. Or worse, someone appropriates his work and takes the credit as if it were his idea. You look to the side and realize that this happens all the time. Those who make fun of the boss, those who have good connections within the company, those who play the political game always do well. What about you? You feel isolated, voiceless, unrecognized. This is not only unfair, it is a huge warning that his career may be being sabotaged. But devaluation does not only happen silently. In some cases, it is direct, cruel, and humiliating. Have you ever given an idea in a meeting and been ignored, but minutes later, someone repeats exactly the same suggestion, and this time, everyone thinks it's amazing? Or receiving disproportionate criticism in front of everyone, as if the goal was to diminish you instead of actually correcting something? This type of behavior is not just a lack of professionalism, it is a strategy of manipulation. There are people who feel threatened by your talent and, instead of recognizing your value, prefer to erase you. And if it comes from your boss, the situation is even worse. A toxic leader doesn't develop you, doesn't encourage you, and doesn't recognize your effort. On the contrary, he makes a point of undermining your self-esteem, overloads you with work without support, throws hints that make you feel incompetent, and never ever recognizes your effort. And the worst, sometimes after so much time in this environment, you start to believe that you really aren't good enough, that maybe the problem is you. But pay attention, the problem is not you. The problem is the environment where you are inserted, an environment that constantly devalues your talents, that doesn't give you room to grow, that makes you feel small, insecure, unmotivated. This is not normal. This is not something you need to accept. And before you think, but maybe if I try harder, things will change, I need to warn you. Recognition should not be begged. If you are already delivering good results and yet your work is not valued, the tendency is for this to continue to happen, because toxic companies work like that. The more you accept being treated this way, the more they will continue to treat you this way. So, what's the solution? The first step is to understand that you are not there to be stepped on. You deserve respect and recognition for what you do. If you notice that your contribution is being deleted, start documenting everything. Save emails, messages, positive feedback from customers or other colleagues. When someone tries to take credit for your work, have concrete proof that you did it. Additionally, seek formal feedback. If your boss never recognizes your work, ask for a direct conversation about your performance. Ask where you can improve. What are the expectations regarding your position? This forces the company to make it clear what the criteria for growth and recognition are. And it's often at this point that you realize that no matter what you do, it will never be enough for them. And this is a great indication that you are in the wrong place. Now, if, in addition to the lack of recognition, you feel that you are being excluded from important meetings, that your work is being passed on to someone else without explanation, that decisions that affect you are being made without even consulting you, it may be that your position within the company has already been weakened without you realizing it. Often, this is a thinly veiled way of pushing someone out. They cut off your influence, isolate you, make you feel irrelevant until you go out on your own. If this is happening to you, take it as a red alert. I know it's not easy to deal with this. The emotional exhaustion, the frustration, the feeling of helplessness, all of this builds up to a point where you just can't take it anymore. But before making any decision, you need to evaluate the extent to which this situation can be reversed. Is there room for change within the company? Is there a possibility of positioning yourself more strategically? Or is the environment already so contaminated that your only option is to leave? If the second case is your reality, don't be afraid to look for new opportunities. Because one thing is certain, there are companies that value their employees. And if where you are doesn't happen, it may be time to consider a new path. And speaking of a stagnant career, this is another strong sign that you may be wasting time in a place that doesn't take you forward. Because it's no use making an effort, being good at what you do, if the environment where you are doesn't allow you to grow. In the next point, let's talk about that. If you feel that you have been in the same position for years, that no one gives you the opportunity to evolve, that any attempt to grow is blocked or ignored, then it may be that the problem is not you, but the place where you are. So tell me, have you ever been through something like this? Have you ever had your credit stolen at work or been excluded from opportunities? Comment here, I've lived it, if this has already happened to you, because I want to know how many people are going through this same situation. And if you haven't been through it yet, comment never, but now I'm going to keep an eye on it, because this can happen without you realizing it. Now, let's move on to the next point, because this is one of the ones that most hinder people's careers without them realizing it. Have you ever felt like you're stagnant, like you're wasting time and your potential is being wasted? You walk into work every day, do the same tasks, face the same repetitive challenges, and in the end, you feel like nothing has changed. No new learning, no evolution, no prospect of something better in the future. You look around and realize that less qualified people have already been promoted, while you remain in exactly the same place. This does not happen by chance. And if you're going through it, it's one of the clearest signs that your work is holding you back. The problem with being stuck in a job with no growth prospects is not just the frustration of the moment, but the impact it can have on your career in the long run. The more time you spend stagnating, the harder it becomes to compete. In the job market, if you're not learning new skills, if you're not expanding your experience, you may be falling behind without realizing it. And that's one of the most dangerous pitfalls of a toxic work environment. It keeps you stuck in a comfort zone that's actually a trap. Now reflect. How long have you been in the same position without any kind of advancement? Have you ever tried to talk about a promotion and always receive vague answers, promises that never materialize, justifications, such as, the company is not at the right time for this, or we will evaluate it in the future, but this future never arrives? And worse, you see other people growing, often without the same effort you put in. This happens because some companies do not promote the most competent, but those who know how to play the political game, suck up to the boss, fit in with the right people. And if your effort isn't being recognized, that's not your problem. This is a flawed system, and staying in it can cost you years of your life. Being stuck in a job without growth can make you miss out on better opportunities in the market. Many people are afraid to leave because they think there's nothing better out there, or because they've been conditioned to believe they need to be grateful for the job they have. But gratitude should not be confused with conformism. You can be grateful for the experience, for the opportunities you've had, but that doesn't mean you have to accept being stuck forever in an environment that doesn't allow you to evolve. If your company doesn't invest in your development, if it doesn't offer training, mentoring, challenges that make you grow, then you're just exchanging time for money. And that should never be your only motivation. Now, if you still have doubts about whether you are stuck in this stagnation, think about the following points. Do you feel that your days are repetitive and that there is no innovation in what you do? Do you feel like you're not learning anything new, that your skills aren't being improved? Does your boss or superiors show interest in helping you grow? Or are you treated as just another unimportant employee? If the answers to these questions are negative, this is a red flag. And the most dangerous thing about this situation is that many times this stagnation does not happen abruptly. It settles slowly. At first, you think you're just going through a phase, that soon things will change. But the months pass, the years pass, and you remain in the same place. And when he realizes he has already lost opportunities, he has already let better proposals pass because he thought that at any moment he would be promoted. Time is your greatest asset, and if you're not making progress, it means you're going backwards. But then what to do in this situation? The first step is to confront reality. You need to evaluate if there is in fact any plan for your growth within the company. If there are no clear perspectives, if no one gives you a concrete path of evolution, if all attempts at growth are frustrated, perhaps the problem is not you, but the place where you are. Many people are afraid to seek a new path because they think they have no other options. But the market is always on the move. Companies that value professional development exist, and many of them are constantly on the lookout for talented people. But to be ready for these opportunities, you need to move. Updating your resume, developing new skills, learning something new, pursuing certifications, networking. All of this is part of the growth process. And if your current company doesn't offer these opportunities, you need to create them for yourself. Now, if you feel like you can still try to grow within the company, it's time to have an honest conversation with your superiors. Set up a meeting and ask directly, what are the criteria for a promotion? What do I need to do to advance in the company? If the answer is vague, if there is no real plan that already gives you the answer you need, because serious companies have structured career plans, have clear goals, know how to retain good professionals. If where you are this does not happen, then it may be time to look for new paths. And here's an important tip: don't wait until the limit to act. Many only realize that they have been in the same place for too long when they are already completely unmotivated, when frustration has already consumed all the desire to continue. Don't expect to get to that point. If you already feel like you're stagnant, start making a plan to get out of that situation. The market is not as scary as it seems, and the best time to look for something better is before you reach your limit. Now, I want to know from you, how long have you been in the same position without growth? Do you feel that your company really values your development, or have you noticed that you are being fooled? Comment here. I've been in prison for X years, or my company values me, so I can better understand how many people are living this situation. And in the next point, let's talk about something even more serious. When the fear of being fired starts to be part of your daily life. If you feel like you're always walking a tightrope, that any mistake can be used against you, that your job never feels secure, then you need to keep watching, because that can be one of the most destructive signs of a toxic work environment. If every day at work feels like Russian roulette, where you don't know if you'll be the next to be fired, then you've probably felt that constant feeling of insecurity, that butterflies in your stomach every time an urgent email appears in your inbox, or when your boss calls you for a quick conversation without telling you why. This constant fear of being let go can be devastating. It sucks your energy, undermines your self-confidence, and can put you in a state of permanent alert, as if you're always walking on eggshells, fearing that any slip-up could cost you your job. And if this feeling has become part of your daily life, it is a strong indication that the environment you are in is not healthy. And the problem isn't just the internal pressure you feel, but the company culture. Some organizations operate on fear. They use the risk of dismissal as a control tool, keeping employees always insecure, always worried, always willing to accept any condition so as not to lose their jobs. This happens subtly. In some places, like when you notice that no one talks openly about staff cuts, but suddenly a colleague just disappears from the company without explanation. The rumor spreads, the tension increases, and everyone starts working even harder, not out of motivation, but out of fear of being next. If your company goes through frequent cuts, without transparency, without apparent criteria, or if you feel that your position is never secure, this instability may be consuming you more than you think. After all, how can you focus on your work, be productive, innovative, or even seek growth, when all you can think about is whether your name will be on the next layoff list? This type of toxic environment generates absurd emotional exhaustion and can even impact your mental health, because you never truly feel part of the company, just someone who is there temporarily, waiting for the moment when you will be discarded. And that's not all. Companies that operate in this system often have managers who reinforce this fear through extreme micromanagement. Have you ever been in a situation where everything you do needs to be reviewed down to the smallest detail? Where your boss controls your every step, makes you feel like you don't trust your work, and always seems to be waiting for a mistake? This kind of leadership is stifling. You start to question your own ability. You start to censor yourself before giving ideas. You are afraid to make decisions, and you are paralyzed in the face of any task. In the long run, this destroys your creativity, your initiative, and your ability to excel. And the worst thing is that many times, this culture of excessive surveillance does not improve the company's productivity. It only generates an environment of distrust and dread. Now think with me. Should your work motivate you to grow or make you feel constantly threatened? Should you feel valued for your competence or conditioned to accept anything just to keep your job? If you spend your days afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being fired at any moment, then your work is robbing you of your peace of mind. And this should never be normalized. Working under pressure is one thing, living under psychological terror is quite another. Another point that intensifies this fear is the lack of clear communication within the company. Do you feel like you never know exactly what's going on? What important information is passed on in a confusing way or only to a select group of people? Companies that hide their decisions and do not inform employees about upcoming changes create an environment of extreme insecurity. The employee becomes dependent on rumors, on hallway gossip, because the company does not offer direct answers. And by the time decisions are finally communicated, it's too late to prepare. But perhaps worst of all is when this culture of fear affects your self-esteem and your vision of the future. Have you ever felt that you can't refuse absurd demands because if you say no, you can be seen as someone who doesn't wear the company's shirt? Have you ever had the impression that you always need to be proving your worth, even after years of dedication? This vicious cycle of anxiety and insecurity makes many people accept to work beyond hours, take work home, answer work messages on days off, all to avoid being seen as expendable. And what happens? In the end, often these same people end up being fired anyway, because in toxic environments the problem was never about performance, but rather about a culture of exploitation and instability. Now, if this fear of being fired is paralyzing you, what can you do to protect yourself? First thing, create a plan B. Never depend solely on one company for your financial stability. Update your resume, start expanding your networking, always be aware of new opportunities in the market. The worst thing that can happen in an unstable environment is to be caught off guard, with no alternative. And make no mistake, many companies fire without warning, without explanation, without consideration for the employee. If you feel like you might be next, get ahead of yourself. Also, start watching the market. Healthy companies don't have to keep their employees afraid. They invest in development, offer psychological safety, and make a point of creating an environment where people feel valued. If where you are, the atmosphere is one of constant tension, it may be time to look for something better. And I know that changing jobs can seem scary, but what's scarier? Stay in the same place and continue to suffer, or take a step towards an environment where you feel safe. And before I close that point, I want to know, have you ever worked in a place where the fear of being fired was constant? Ever had to deal with a boss who used veiled threats to keep the team under control? In the next point, let's talk about the most devastating sign of all. The one that, if you ignore it, can make you lose years of your life. If you feel that your happiness has completely disappeared and that your work is draining all your energy, then you need to keep watching, because this can be the biggest wake-up call of all. If there is a sign that cannot be ignored at all, this is it. Because at the end of the day, what good is a steady salary, benefits, a position that seems secure on paper, if you feel miserable all the time? Waking up every morning with that feeling of heaviness in your chest, with inexplicable anguish, with the certainty that another exhausting day is beginning, should not be normal. But unfortunately, for many people, this is the reality. The biggest sign that you need to quit your toxic job is when your happiness has completely disappeared. When you realize that even on the good days, you no longer feel any satisfaction, no motivation, no desire to continue. And I'm not just talking about 1 or 2 bad days, because everyone has a tough time at work. This is part of professional life. But when that feeling becomes a permanent state, when frustration becomes the only thing you feel about your routine, then something is very wrong. Have you ever felt that each week feels like a never-ending burden, that the days seem dragged on, that Sunday night has turned into a nightmare because it means Monday is coming? Have you ever been there? This feeling is one of the biggest warning signs that your work is not doing you any good. And the worst part is that you often don't realize how much it's affecting you until someone from the outside tells you. Maybe a friend has commented that you're always irritable, that you complain about work all the time, that you always seem to be on edge. Maybe your family has noticed that you come home exhausted, without patience, without energy to talk or enjoy any moment of rest. And what happens after months, years of living like this? You get used to it. He thinks that this is adult life, that working has to be like that no one likes what they do. But that's one of the biggest lies you've been told. If you wake up every day hating your job, feel constantly frustrated, lacking motivation, if every task seems unbearable and every problem feels like a crushing weight, maybe it's time to move on, because no one should have to spend 40 hours a week or more in a place that destroys their joy of living. Think about it. You spend more time at work than with your family, your friends, than doing anything else. This means that the way you feel about your work has a huge impact on your quality of life. And if this impact is being negative, then the question is not only professional, but about your mental health, your happiness, your future. The problem is that many people feel this emptiness, this unhappiness, but they remain where they are out of fear. Fear of change, fear of not finding something better, fear of the unknown. This fear is understandable, but it cannot be greater than your need to live a life that is truly worthwhile. And the question you need to ask yourself is very simple. If I stay here for 2 more years, will my life get better or worse? Think about it sincerely. Imagine your future within that company. Do you see yourself happy, fulfilled, feeling that you are evolving? Or do you imagine yourself even more frustrated, even more unmotivated, feeling like you're wasting your time and your potential? If the answer is no, then it may be high time to consider new paths. And I know that this decision is not easy. The fear of change can paralyze you. It can make you cling to any justification for not leaving. But think about it. If you keep waiting for a perfect moment, it may never come. Life will not give you an easy way out, a golden opportunity, without you going after it. The first step to quitting a toxic job is to recognize that you deserve better. And believe me, you deserve it. You deserve an environment where you are respected, where you have growth, where you can work without carrying the weight of unhappiness every day. And if you're thinking, but is there anything better for me? The answer is yes, exists. But to find that opportunity, you need to move. You need to start planning your exit. You need to prepare your way for a safe transition without putting your financial stability at risk. In the next point, I'll show you what to do before quitting, to make sure you get out of this situation smart, with no regrets, and ready for something much better. Now tell me, do you feel that your work makes you happy, or have you lost all motivation? Do you need to leave because you feel like you've reached your limit, or are you still in doubt? I want to know how many people are living this reality, because I know that many people identify with it, but are afraid to admit it. And if you really want to change this situation, you will see that what comes next can save you from making a hasty decision, or to remain imprisoned where he should not be. Now that you've identified the signs that you need to leave, the most important moment has arrived. How to do it without harming yourself. Because quitting a toxic job without planning can turn a problem into something even worse. And what I see most are people who, tired of so much pressure, devaluation, and unhappiness, make impulsive decisions, leave without a structured plan, and then face difficulties that could have been avoided. I understand this desire to drop everything at once, to simply leave and never look back. But the exit needs to be strategic, so that you don't exchange a bad environment for a situation of instability and uncertainty. The first step before resigning is to ensure your financial security. If you leave without having money saved, the pressure to find another job quickly can lead you to accept any opportunity that comes your way without evaluating whether it's really worth it. Ideally, you should have an emergency reserve of at least 3 to 6 months of paid expenses. This means calculating exactly how much you spend each month on housing, food, transportation, bills, and other essential costs. If you don't have this reserve yet, start building it now. Reduce unnecessary expenses, avoid large purchases, and focus on saving to ensure that, at the time of transition, you have peace of mind to choose the best path without despair. Also, before you even communicate your departure, start looking for new opportunities. Many people make the mistake of only thinking about it after they are already unemployed, which can make the process much more difficult. Update your resume, optimize your LinkedIn, search for vacancies in your area, contact recruiters. Ideally, you should already have interviews scheduled, or better yet, a new proposal in hand before you hand in your resignation letter. This gives you security and reduces the transition time between one job and another. And here's an important detail. Don't tell anyone within the company that you're looking for another job. Unfortunately, toxic environments can become even worse when they realize you're about to leave. Another crucial point is networking. Maintaining good professional contacts can open doors to opportunities you didn't even imagine. Talk to people in your industry, attend events, interact in discussion groups, ask for recommendations. Many hires happen by referral, and if you've built a good reputation throughout your career, a simple conversation may lead you down a new path. If you don't already have a strong network, start building this now. Add former colleagues, participate in forums in your area, be present where people in your industry are. Now, a point that many people ignore: leave ethically. I know that in a toxic environment, the desire to just throw everything up and leave can be great, but leaving the right way can make all the difference in your professional future. Avoid unnecessary fights. Don't go out talking bad about the company or your colleagues. Deliver your resignation letter with professionalism. If possible, comply with the notice. Organize your tasks. Leave everything ready for whoever will take your place. This shows maturity and professionalism, as well as avoiding future problems. You never know when you might need a recommendation or when you might cross paths again with someone from that company in another professional context. And speaking of prior notice, this is a point that needs to be well analyzed. Depending on the legislation of your country or the contract you signed, you may have to serve a mandatory period before leaving. In some cases, it is possible to negotiate to leave earlier, but the ideal is always to check what your rights and duties are before formalizing the departure. If you have accumulated vacations, for example, you can try to use them before the dismissal to gain more time to get organized. Another mistake many people make when quitting a toxic job is not closing cycles. This means that instead of simply going out and erasing this experience from your life, use this moment to reflect on what you have learned, what you don't want to repeat in your next job, and what were the signs you ignored before the situation reached the extreme. This helps you avoid falling into similar traps in the future. What can you learn from this experience? How can you use this to make better choices going forward? These questions are essential for your next choice to be more conscious and aligned with your goals. And if you are still not absolutely sure that you should leave, but you feel that the situation is becoming unsustainable, do the following exercise. Imagine that you received a proposal from another company now. Would you feel relieved or would you be in doubt if you really want to leave? If the answer is relief, that's already a clear sign that you need to move on. When the work environment becomes so heavy that the mere idea of leaving feels liberating, it means that something is very wrong. Now, if you feel like you're ready to make that decision, but you're still afraid to take the first step, remember, what brought you here doesn't have to be what will take you forward. You don't have to be stuck in a place that doesn't do you any good just because you've invested years there. The time he spent in this company was not wasted, it was learning. But that doesn't mean you have to keep suffering. Making the decision to quit a toxic job is not just about changing jobs, but about regaining your mental health, your happiness, and your motivation. And if you've already noticed that this environment is making you sick, the right time to act is now. Have you started preparing to quit your toxic job, or are you still in the decision process? This will help me understand what phase you are in and bring you more content to help you in this process. And in the next point, let's talk about what to do after you leave a toxic job. Because the transition doesn't end at the moment of dismissal. There is a path that needs to be well planned so that your next professional experience is really better. If you have identified with 2 or more of these signs, it may be time to seriously think about changing. And I know that this is not an easy decision. Leaving a job, no matter how toxic it is, always brings uncertainty. The fear of being without income, of not finding something better, of regretting it, all this goes through the minds of those who are living this situation. But one thing needs to be clear: your well-being cannot be negotiable. You deserve more than a work environment that sucks you in, that devalues you, that makes you feel small and without prospects. You deserve a place where you are respected, where you have growth, where you can work without carrying the weight of frustration every day. The great truth is that most people spend too much time in jobs that destroy them little by little. First, it's just a nuisance. Then comes stress. Over time, exhaustion sets in, motivation disappears, and you no longer see the point in what you do. But do you know what's worse? When you realize that you've spent years in this destructive cycle and that all that time could have been invested in something really worthwhile. The regret of not having left earlier can be devastating. But if you're here now, watching this video, it means you've already taken the first step. You've recognized the problem. And this is the most important step to change your life. If everything you've seen so far made sense to you, then the time to take action is now. Don't leave it for later. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because it will never come. You need to start planning your exit, strategize, prepare for a new path. And I'm here to help you with that. On my channel, I bring content for those who want to learn how to deal with toxic environments, protect themselves at work, and get out of these situations intelligently and safely. So if you haven't signed up yet, this is the time. Subscribe now, activate the notification bell, because there is much more content coming out that can literally change your professional trajectory. And before you leave this video, I want to know, which of these signs have you noticed in your work? What was that moment when you realized something was wrong and that maybe it was time to change? Comment below. I deserve more. If you feel like you need to quit your toxic job, or I'm on the right track if you are already planning to go out strategically. And if this content helped you in any way, just leave the like, because it helps me to keep bringing more videos like this to you. And now that you know how to recognize the signs and have a plan to leave without losses, the next thing you need to understand is how to avoid falling into another trap at your next job. In the video that is appearing here on the screen, I tell you what are the warning signs that you should watch out for before accepting a new position, so as not to leave a bad environment and enter a worse one. So click on the video now and let's continue this conversation there. See you in the next video.